Today, I'm going to try to draw this fancy little entrance in Nafplio, Greece, and I'm going to draw this exactly the way that I want. That sounds odd, probably, but I've realized in drawing that sometimes some things make more sense than others with respect to order of operations. So yesterday, I started with the steps, which I don't enjoy, but because they inhabited a certain area of the composition, it made things easier for me. But today I don't have that problem. There's not much to speak of a la composition, since this is more like a big subject than a whole scene with layers and whatnot. So I'm doing this my way, which means, most importantly, not starting with the steps. Instead, I want to build the most basic frame for this that I possibly can and jump headfirst into the details. I know already that they are going to be my favorite part of this drawing, so I don't want to spend the first half struggling over each and every precise proportion or whatever. I was drawn in by these ornate roof tiles up top. I had my eye on the potted plants, the shapes of the pillars, etc. So those are the things I focused on, and I think that worked in my favor. You know what else would work in my favor? You subscribing to the channel. How's that for a segue? Pretty good, I faintly hear you say. Anyway, yeah, if you could go ahead and do that, I would appreciate it. And if you're brand new here, you're probably thinking, what am I watching? Great question. You're watching me slowly teach myself to draw from life while I travel around various countries and such. Currently, I'm in Greece, which is stunning. And today is 123 of this practice. How am I doing? Let me know in the comments. Okay, so yeah, I'm in Greece and it's late in the season. I guess you actually could say it's fully off season. And I'm thankful for that. If not, if I was sitting here at the prime time to visit this place, for one, I would be burnt to a crisp in this little square. But for two, and more to the point, I would be in everyone's way. From what I've gathered, this place is swarming with people like me in the summer. So I am so glad to have missed all of that. Really though, I think these places shine when you can walk through the streets and pop into a restaurant or go for a swim without having to wade through the hordes of people with the same idea. The weather is more pleasant. I guess that's subjective. There's more room for people to spread out, which is not subjective. And most importantly, the folks who live here probably don't hate me for being, the 1200th American that asks for a Freddo cappuccino and a water, unable to properly say thank you in Greek, no less. I can't imagine. So if I had any advice to all the tourists out there, and don't think you can get away from me by thinking you're a traveler. You're a tourist too. We're all tourists and it's okay to embrace it. I'd say, actually I was going to say you should visit all year round to release some of the high season pressure, but then I looked around at the empty town I'm staying in and I started to feel selfish. So actually, do whatever you want. No, I'm sure the locals would love a bit of a break, so I don't know. Come in April or May instead of like July. It's probably better in every way anyway. So what was I talking about? I don't know. Doesn't matter. As you can see, my drawing is coming together and I bet it looks marginally better than even you expected, right? I'm putting a lot of effort into this. Especially in terms of suggesting high detail, and I think that's working. I say suggesting because if you've been paying attention, you'll notice that most, if not all, of the small details here are just blatantly incorrect. What's important, though, is the essence of it. It's the general form and contrast more than the hyper-specific, subatomic detail. Getting everything perfectly correct would be impossible, and not just because I'm not very capable, but because of the size of the drawing. Generally speaking, these are pretty tiny, so unless I want to haul around a microscope, There's just no way of achieving literally perfect detail in something like this. And don't get me wrong, I'm well aware that more accurate detail is definitely possible, much more, I know. But given these variables, it would benefit me to focus on slightly broader components and avoid getting bogged down by, like, the little faces in the tiles, for example. Can you even see those in the video? Exactly. They're barely even there. So if I can get it in my head that I should be building out the spirit of what I'm seeing more than the cold, hard truth of what's there in front of me, I'll be a lot better off, and so will the drawing. Speaking of that, let's call it spirit versus precision. I was recently watching a video by Brandon Acker, I think it's pronounced, on YouTube. He's a classical guitarist. And I don't recall the context, but he was talking about this difference between the technically perfect rendition of a piece versus the spirit of it and what it's trying to say and what the composer intended or felt while creating it. Something along those lines. He obviously values accuracy and one's ability to uphold the requisite technicality. He describes that as like level 1. But sometimes, even if it stands in contrast to the notes on the page, he values even more the ability to intuit the emotional spirit of what's being played and to embrace the music as something more like flowing and organic than exactly perfect. And maybe I'm putting some words in his mouth, so don't quote me exactly. But he's very clearly an incredible contemporary guitar player who can play with unbelievable clarity and accuracy. But he also understands some of the deeper themes that often go unappreciated, or more accurately, unnoticed by probably every intermediate guitar player altogether. So that obviously made me think a lot about drawing and how the two connect. And while I'm not exactly copying centuries-old masterworks like he is, I still think I can glean something from his understanding of the music. And I think I've scratched the surface conceptually, but I'd love to sit with it for a while and really let it stew. For what it's worth, as a guitar player myself, I always put precision on a pedestal, and that was no doubt to the detriment of the spirit of the music I was playing. I'd love to get back to that someday, and I'd love it if I can notice it now in my drawings and work from that understanding going forward. Anyway, I thought that was interesting, and if I can ever be as good at drawing as Brandon is at guitar, well, I can't imagine that happening, but it sure would be cool, I'll tell you that. So, with all of that said, and as much as I really enjoyed this process and genuinely like the outcome quite a bit, I can see this for what it is, and that really does come down to my obsession with precision. I can see the woodenness of this subject, and I'd really love to work past that, even if it means letting go of some of the technicality for a while. Again, I'm just glad I have this stuff in my head now so that I can use it as a platform from which to spring rather than find out later and wish I could start over. Anyway, let me know what you think about this one. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with all your friends, yada, yada, yada. You get the deal. I appreciate you for taking the time to watch this one, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.